right, this is question number 6 from chapter 15.6. It's asking us, in late 2012, the U S Treasury sold the last stock it had purchased in the insurance company AIG. The Treasury earned a profit of $22.7 billion on the money that it had invested in AIG in 2008. An article in the Wall Street Journal noted the step in AIG's turnaround, which essentially closes the book on one of the most controversial bailouts of the financial crisis, seemed nearly unattainable in 2008 when the insurer's imminent collapse sent shockwaves through the global economy. A. Why did the federal government bail out AIG? So let's start with A. Why? Well, it's very simple. AIG was, and possibly still is, I'm not sure, the biggest insurance provider in the world, or at the very least in the US, possibly the world. But it was absolutely huge, and if it were to go down, it would completely cripple the economy. And the economy was already in shambles. I mean, at this point in time, but it was one of those things that was so big that if it failed, it would completely discombobulate the American economy as well as the global economy. It would certainly have effects across the world. And then part B is asking us, why was the government bailout controversial? And it was controversial because, well, A, it was like kind of unprecedented. I mean, government bailouts weren't a huge thing before, especially by the Fed. But more importantly, it was controversial because so many other firms were failing. It seemed like if they were going to bail out one, they should bail out the rest. And not to mention that because it was failing, it was probably going to be essentially a loss of money, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine investing in something that's completely failing and then turning it around within 5 years. And then for part C, it's asking us, does the fact that the federal government earned a profit on this investment in AIG mean that economists and policymakers who opposed the bailout were necessarily wrong? And no, I don't think it means they were necessarily wrong because, as I just said, it's very hard to imagine this being profitable. This is essentially can be seen as an investment in which they would most likely lose money, but it would be at the cost of saving the economy. So, considering that most policymakers probably expect to just completely lose that money, that is a somewhat reasonable point to have.